Special guest. Great to have Mahershala Ali joining us right now. If you haven't seen Moonlight, go see it.
The 89th Academy Awards and Cinephile will be there. Get all the details at Cinephile, the Adnan Virk movie podcast. Available now on the ESPN app and iTunes.
This is The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio or on the ESPN app.
It's hour 3 of The Right Time. Bomani's off today. Dickerson and Hood, Jonathan Hood, Jeff Dickerson, sitting in today on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, Sirius XM Channel 80. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and we're also brought to you by Applebee's. Get your choice of the all-in burgers, fries, and a bottomless Pepsi for $9.99. You could win great prizes like Producer for the Day on Mike and Mike. NFL free agency begins next month. And it's all over our NFL page on ESPN.com every day. There's a different story, it seems like, Jonathan, about Jimmy Garoppolo and what the Patriots plan to do. There's been a school of thought that they will not trade Garoppolo. And if they don't, you can understand why. I mean, Tom Brady, as amazing as he is going to turn 40 years old this summer. He looked human in the first half of the Super Bowl, looked amazing in the second half of the Super Bowl, but still, you never know when his skills will begin to erode. And Garoppolo's under contract for over like $800,000. Next year, it's the final year of his original rookie deal.
Right.
So you don't want to trade a guy in the event that he might have to be the heir apparent to Tom Brady if you think he can really play. So I completely understand why the Patriots would be hesitant to trade him. But I do wonder if they're going to get such a good offer, a first-round pick and beyond, that it might be just impossible for them not to move Garoppolo if the price is right.
You know what I think about when it comes to Garoppolo and whether or not he's going to be moved or not? I always think this. If Garoppolo is expendable to the Patriots, what's wrong with Garoppolo? Right? Because if you know the Patriots, you know that they really know what they want in a player. And they make very few mistakes when it comes to personnel. So if Garoppolo is on the trading block, say, for instance, that he is expendable, that he could be good, then I would wonder, as the other team, what's wrong with Garoppolo? Because clearly, if you're Bill Belichick and you believe in Garoppolo and his future, you'd want to keep him, as you mentioned, to be the heir apparent for Tom Brady. Brady, as great as he was in the Super Bowl against Atlanta, he's not going to do that always. Okay, so tomorrow's not promised for Tom Brady. One major hit or age over the years, a decline, it very well will happen with Tom Brady if he doesn't retire soon. So why wouldn't you keep someone that you believe in? If he's available, then I'd be very scared if I'm the other team.
However, that being said, if he's available, but only for a first-round pick, and when I say first-round pick, I mean I'm reading my man Pat McManaman on ESPN.com, our Browns reporter, writing that he doesn't think it would be outlandish for the Browns to give up the number 1 overall pick to New England for Jimmy Garoppolo. San Francisco needs a quarterback. They're picking number 2. Mm-hmm. Chicago needs a quarterback. They're picking number 3. So if the asking price, if you can get one of those picks in return, don't you have to seriously give that some consideration if you're Belichick? I mean, everything that I've heard, and I can't say for certain. No one can, because Garoppolo has only played in a couple of regular season games.
Right.
But everything you hear is that they like Garoppolo. I mean, if they didn't like Garoppolo, there's no way, Jonathan, that he would have started the year in place of Brady before Garoppolo got hurt, of course. There's no way. I mean, they're not just going to start anybody at quarterback in New England. They drafted him fairly highly. He's been in that building every day. He's been with Brady. He's been with McDaniels. He's been with Belichick. So there's enough evidence to me to suggest that this guy could be pretty good. But to get him, you're going to have to pay a lot. So is it worth it?
Okay.
Is it worth it?
So if you're Cleveland and you need everything besides the offensive lineman Thomas, right? You need everything. You need secondary. You need defense. You need everything except him. pretty much, right? I mean, look at that Browns team is depleted. They're building towards something, and they got to build toward young players, piecemeal with a few veterans to try to make this thing work. I believe in Hugh Jackson, by the way, as the head coach. The thing is that he has no talent. He's got to figure out what that is. Now, if you make that deal and say Garoppolo has to be the quarterback, it starts with the quarterback and the coach and their chemistry they have together. Okay. So you're saying that you need Garoppolo more than you need Myles Garrett, for instance, who could be the number one pick, the defensive end out of Texas A&M, or more so than Jonathan Allen, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. You think you're going to roll the dice and believe that Garoppolo is the real thing without having a quality offensive line in front of him, without having quality receivers to throw to, and how many games into that Cleveland tenure before someone says, it's Garoppolo. He stinks. He can't play. Well, how do you know if there's nothing around him? Garoppolo looks good with the Patriots for the time that he was on the field because of that iron gate in front of him, because of the weapons that he had to throw to. So, are we looking at an Osweiler situation if Garoppolo goes to one of these bad teams, Chicago, San Francisco, or Cleveland?
Well, to me, it all starts with quarterback.
Right.
It's much easier to address your offensive line, to find some wide receivers that can catch, to find a running back, a tight end. That's much easier to do than finding the right quarterback. If you are 100% convinced, based on your evaluations of this guy, and you got to pour over everything. You got to go back to the college tape. Everything has to be so analyzed and scrutinized because it's such a big commitment if you're going to give up a first-round pick for someone with only like 2.5 career starts, in the NFL. Right. But if you are convinced, then there's no price too great for a quarterback because you can't win without a quarterback. You can't. The Browns have had good receivers, a couple good receivers over the years. They've had some good offensive linemen, not many, but a couple. They've had some skill position players that could play a little bit, but they've never had the right quarterback since Bernie Kosar.
Yeah, and that's not hyperbole. That's the truth. They have not had a quarterback that they can depend on a regular basis since him. So you're right.
So, you can't do anything in this league unless you have a legit top-flight quarterback. He doesn't have to be the next Brady. He doesn't have to be the next Peyton Manning. But he's got to fall in that realm of guys that you win with, and occasionally you win because. Okay,
so all right. So veteran quarterback in Romo, or do you go with the unknown and Garoppolo? Because we've only seen a handful of games to see what he's done, Jeff. And that's, again, it scares me if I'm the other side of that phone call. Oh, you want to give me your number one draft pick for Jimmy? Okay, good. Well, don't you want to keep him? No, we'll take Myles Garrett or Allen off your hands. We'll do that. That would frighten me. Well, I'm just saying. Because you know why? Because the good organizations know how to keep their players and keep them off of the trade block. The New England Patriots are like St. Louis Cardinals baseball or the Atlanta Braves when they're good back in the day. Whenever they made a deal, usually those players weren't very good, and they knew what they were doing to make those players expendable. Like, we have a farm system that we believe in, and so these players are off the, you can't touch them. They're untouchables. But you can have these guys, and you think, well, they came from this system, so they should be fine. They come to your team, and they can't play. Well, I think that's scary.
To be fair, though, and I know I was talking about Brady turning 40, and the first half wasn't so hot at the Super Bowl. He's still Tom Brady. So it's not like they don't have the greatest quarterback of all time still entrenched atop their depth chart.
Right.
And they have to make a decision on Garoppolo after next year regardless because his contract is up. And if you're going to be offered a number 1 pick or a number 3 pick or a first and a third or however the deal might be structured. Now, some people think they won't get a first-round pick, and that's fine. I believe that they like this guy, and they're not going to give him up for something that isn't extremely lucrative and beneficial to New England. So I can see scenarios where they deal him, even though privately they believe that he's going to be a really good player. I can see that, but it's going to be expensive, and you're going to have to pay for it. I think teams are interested. I think a lot of teams will be interested. It just depends what people are comfortable giving up And what's going to be the bottom line for New England? Like, what is it? Do they hang up? If Chicago calls, they say, we want Jimmy G. And Belichick says, I want your number 3 pick, and then we'll talk. That starts there. And the Bears go, nope. And Belichick goes, and just hangs up the phone. I mean, I don't know. Like, what is that point of no return for New England?
You're paying through the nose if you want Jimmy G. That's what I think.
Well, yeah, I think you are, but it could be. But the payoff could be that you find your franchise quarterback who's only 25 years old. Put it this way: would you, if everything was equal, and you had a chance to get Garoppolo, Mitch Trubisky, or Deshaun Watson with a top 3 pick, who would you feel best about getting?
Well, I've seen Garoppolo play, and I've seen the other 2 in college. I like Watson a lot. Don't get it twisted. Watson is a guy, and again, we're talking about, and actually with all 3 guys, we're talking about rolling the dice and a lot of maybes.
But
all three guys.
And that's the problem right now in the NFL.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's going to be a roll of the dice or a maybe. There'll be an Andrew Luck. There'll be Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota. Unfortunately, those guys are not around right now. Mm-hmm. Tom Brady was a roll of the dice. They got lucky with that. Peyton Manning was not. But that is just a small sample size of sure things. There are so few sure things now at quarterback that if you're a team, you're going to have to get aggressive sometimes and take some chances. And this is a big chance. But the payoff could be great for your franchise and for your fan base.
You can have the quarterback in place, Jeff. But if you got nothing around him, he's just a quarterback that's just out there getting killed. I'm just saying, like, and again, making the acquisition is one thing, but also moving forward and making sure you have enough around him that way you're successful. That's another thing. So, I mean, again, we're talking about the Browns here, and so you would think that at some point it will click for them to do the right thing, for them to get out of the doldrums that they've had over the years. But man, it's tough. All 3 of those quarterbacks are unproven. The only thing we've seen from Garoppolo is that yes, he does look like he looks the part. But I'd love to see him in a full complement of games. It won't be with New England for sure over the next couple of years as long as Brady's there.
Yeah, and quickly, Romo, I mean, Houston's the best spot for him. Just cut him. He'll stay in Texas. That's a team that can win next year. They're ready to win. That's a situation that Romo needs to walk into, not a rebuild like Cleveland or Chicago. He needs to go to Houston. To me, that makes the most sense. Back to the NBA, Antonio Daniels, former NBA player. Right now he's a studio analyst for the Thunder. Will join us coming up next to talk about All-Star Weekend. It's Dickerson and Hood. We're filling in for Bomani. It's the right time on ESPN Radio.
I guarantee those producer types are probably going to hate me.
Hear how it all went down at the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game with Peter Rosenberg Monday morning on Mike and Mike, 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Nothing makes you feel better than jamming to the song you haven't heard in a while. The Right Time with Bomani Jones presents the Old Soul Song of the Day.
Oh, we found that clean Master P song, huh? We were looking for that.
All-Star Game is in New Orleans, so you got to play some Master P. I mean, it's a rite of passage, my friend. Got to have some Master P with the All-Star Game in New Orleans.
It's Dickerson and Hood. We're filling in for Bomani today. It's the right time. It's ESPN Radio. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. Antonio Daniels, former great NBA player, now a studio analyst for the Thunder, joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Antonio, how you doing, my man?
I'm good, fellas. How are you?
We're doing wonderful. Can't wait to see what happens with the All-Star festivities this weekend in New Orleans. I got to ask you, though, Antonio, because you watch Westbrook all the time, and you're close to that team now. How do you think it's going to work out with Westbrook and Durant? Do you think the right thing would be for Steve Kerr to put those guys on the floor together at the same time, kind of early on Sunday, and just try to, squash that drama the best he can?
I mean, realistically, I don't know if the drama will be squashed, regardless as to when Steve Kerr decides to put Russell and KD on the floor together. I don't know if that drama can be squashed. From what I've known about Russell, he's a great guy off the floor. great, completely different off the floor than he is on the floor. That anger and passion that he plays with on the floor. When you see him off the floor, he's a completely different person. Just the most down-to-earth, nicest guy you will ever meet. But he doesn't really seem like the type to have that forgiving personality. Like, okay, you know what, let's just hoop and forget about everything that just happened. That doesn't seem like Russ.
So, Antonio, don't you think it's just right for Steve Kerr to change the nameplate and just put KD next to Russ? Don't you think that's going to work out real well in that locker room for the West?
Okay, I have a question. And why are we so concerned with this?
You know why? You know why?
Yeah.
Because from last Saturday's game, the drama that we saw with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, and the dynamic between the two, how great they were, and now they're on different teams and they're going to battle one another on the floor. They're going to be together in the All-Star game. That's why it's interesting. It's a great storyline for the All-Star game to see two great players being on the same team, battling against each other just a week ago.
But you know what really last Saturday really proved is that the hurt is real. You know, you hear so many different reports about, oh, you know what, maybe it's not. Man, that hurt is real. If I'm Russell Westbrook, I'm hurt. You know, when I was younger, I've said this before, when I was younger and you go out to the club, if you would go out to the club and not call some of your boys, but they heard you went to the club, they would be upset at you. Like, oh, man, you're going to go out and you can't call and tell me, let alone changing teams. After we've gone through Western Conference Finals, NBA Finals, Game 7s, defending each other on and off the floor, and press conferences, took up for one another, and then you decide to go to the team that we just lost to in the Western Conference Finals, and I don't even get a call? You can't even call me and tell me? I'm sorry. That hurt was real. So for people to say, you know what, man, this is all played up, it's not played up. You can see that. Russ don't want nothing to do with KD right now. And I think last Saturday was just evidence of that.
Antonio Daniels is our guest on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. You know, one of the topics we talked about, Antonio, when Jonathan and I were doing the shows when Durant left and went to Golden State, wasn't that, you know, how is Golden State going to respond? Because obviously adding Durant, they're going to still be the top team in the West. But it was how was Westbrook going to do as the lead dog? And realistically, how far can he take the Thunder, you know, with him at the top? So right now at the break, they're the 7th team in the West. Realistically, what do you expect from them in the second half and when the postseason gets here?
You know, you really kind of expected this, right where they are right now, to finish anywhere between 5, 6, 7, or 8, and for Russell Westbrook to be in contention for MVP. That's exactly what you expected. So right now, there has been nothing that has really kind of blown me away like, man, I'm really surprised. Because Oklahoma City's right about where myself and I know a number of us thought that they would be. They were no longer considered a championship caliber team. When you lose somebody like Kevin Durant, of that caliber, of that skill set, that's a walking mismatch, you don't just make up for that. You know, as great as Victor Oladipo has been this year, as great as Sabonis has been this year, they're not Kevin Durant, and that's no disservice to either one of those guys because they're fitting in admirably. But when you lose a guy like Kevin Durant, you don't have a choice as a team, as an organization, as a locker room, but to take a few steps backwards and now become patient with the process.
AD, what's your biggest surprise in the Western Conference in the first half of the season?
Oh, easily Houston. Easily Houston. So I guess my biggest positive surprise would be Houston, and my biggest negative surprise would be Portland. You know, if you look at what Houston has done and the way that James Harden has bought into Mike D'Antoni's system, you know, right now he's your MVP frontrunner because Houston is 20 games above 500. This team is 3rd in the Western Conference. That is the last thing I expected. I'm not going to lie to you. That's the last thing I expected. But on the flip side, I did not expect Portland to nosedive in the wrong direction the way that they have. You know, being a playoff team last year, the past couple years, and guard-driven league. This is a guard-driven league. You have one of the best guard combinations in the league. You add Evan Turner, and things just don't work. For some strange, odd reason, things aren't working in Houston. I mean, in Portland. So I guess on the negative side, my biggest surprise would be Portland, and on the positive side, it would be Houston.
It's been another typical Spurs year, Antonio. Very quiet. You know, no one's really saying much. But they've positioned themselves nicely here to start the second half. Do you think when we get to the playoffs, and if Golden State and San Antonio were to meet in a 7-game series, do the Spurs have enough, do you believe, to beat the Warriors?
I don't think so. I really don't. San Antonio is a very, very good basketball team, and now they have a special guy on their roster in Kawhi Leonard. So Kawhi Leonard is no longer just a good player. He's special because he has a skill set that no one else in this league has. What he does on both sides of the ball, no one else in this league does that at that rate. But what really hurts San Antonio is, one, their point guard play. Tony Parker and Patty Mills. Tony Parker, Father Time has just caught up to him. That happens to everybody. And when you're talking about going into the playoffs in the Western Conference, you're going to get Chris Paul, you're going to get Steph Curry, you're going to get Damian Lillard, you're going to get Russell Westbrook, so you're going to have a tough matchup night in and night out in the Western Conference. And right now, their point guard position is not producing enough. So now, when you talk about playing Golden State has a dynamic that no other team in this league has. The only other team that has that potential to have it is Cleveland because of the way their roster is constructed. San Antonio had to beat Golden State. They have to play small. And that means you have to put 5 guys on the floor with the same skill set, a skill set to handle, shoot, pass, dribble, defend with a high basketball IQ and kind of beat Golden State at their own game. And I don't think they have 5 guys on that roster that can do that.
AD, lastly, the stories come out this week regarding Magic Johnson, and I think that he's willing to be the new general manager of the team because Jim Buss did say that if the team did not turn around in the last couple of years that he would step down. What do you think that about Magic Johnson being in that position as working alongside Mitch Kupchak in the Lakers front office?
Well, I mean, you know what? If Magic is very highly respected in every basketball mind, from every basketball mind. And if they feel like Magic can kind of take this team to that next level, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it because if you look at what has happened from the moment that Kobe Bryant has said that he was going to retire, this team is not heading in the right direction, even though I think Luke Walton was an excellent hire. I think he was a great hire, and I think he will be a great hire and will pay dividends in the future. But thus far, things haven't panned out very well. So there's nothing wrong with someone stepping aside and saying, hey, you know what, Magic, you have the ins and out here. You have a high basketball IQ mind. Step in here and help us out. You know, I think Magic will be a great guy for that position.
Antonio, thank you so much. Enjoy your weekend, okay?
All right, thanks, fellas. I appreciate you. All right, Hood.
All right, man.
Antonio Daniels with us here on ESPN Radio. Dickerson and Hood in for Bomani. This is ESPN Radio. Discover the best new way for you to buy travel. It's called Upside.com. Every time you buy a trip at Upside, you save a ton of money with flight and hotel bundles, and they give you an Amazon gift card worth $100 to even $300 every trip. Use the name Bomani, and you're guaranteed to get at least a $200 Amazon gift card your first trip. The name Bomani gets you at least a $200 gift card free. How can you not do it? Save big on travel and get a big gift card every trip. You'll love Upside.com, Upside.com.
ESPN Radio Sports Center.
I'm Christine Lisi, developing story at today's NBA All-Stars media availability. Both Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook were fairly mum when asked about their relationship and how a reunion as teammates on the Western Conference squad will play out. Westbrook instead turned every Durant-related question into an answer about fashion, and Durant said he's not even planning on talking to Westbrook this weekend. Speaking on ESPN Radio's Meet the All-Stars show, Paul George said he still wants to lead the Pacers to their first championship, but he stopped short of saying it's guaranteed he'll sign the estimated $219 million extension the team is expected to offer him this summer. The NBA joined the NFL in suggesting Texas will be overlooked for future big events if state lawmakers pass a proposed bathroom bill targeting transgender people. An NBA spokesman said an environment where people are treated fairly and equally weighs heavily when the league chooses host locations. The NBA moved this year's All-Star game from Charlotte to New Orleans after North Carolina adopted its bathroom bill last year. Dodgers first baseman Adrian Gonzalez limited at least the next 2 weeks because of right elbow inflammation.
Want an easy way to see if you could save money on car insurance? Geico gives you 3. Call 1-800-947-AUTO. Go online to geico.com or stop by the Geico office nearest you. 3 ways you could save 15% or more.
You've got the right time on ESPN Radio. Bomani is off, enjoying the weekend. Jeff Dickerson, Jonathan Hood, Dickerson and Hood sitting in. We're also on Sirius XM Channel 80 and the ESPN app. We're brought to you by Firestone Complete Auto Care. Keeping cars running newer, longer, whatever you drive a Firestone. Man, I love some SEC Big Ten heat. Don't you?
Well, as an SEC fan and a Georgia fan, sick 'em, of course I'm into that heat.
I love this latest little squabble between Paul Feinbaum and Jim Harbaugh. So the backstory here is that Harbaugh hired the father of a recruit to join his coaching staff. And Paul did not like this move and said on his show that Harbaugh is breaking NCAA rules.
This is wrong. It may not be illegal by NCAA standards and bylaws as of this moment, but to me it's cheating. It's blatantly disregarding the spirit of the NCAA rule. We all know why he's doing it. And this is the same person who last year accused Nick Saban of cheating. He accused Hugh Freeze of cheating. And in my mind, and I know you can't prove it, and he won't be penalized for it, but he's cheating. And why don't we just face up to it? There's no other reason why he would hire this man. It's been done in the past, and you pointed out a couple of years ago it was done, but it's still wrong. And I don't know why the media celebrates Jim Harbaugh for disregarding the NCAA rule book and doing things that, in my mind, are unethical.
And here's Harbaugh's response. He went to Twitter. And he said, Pete Feinbaum, so he obviously did not give Paul his due with his first name. Pete Feinbaum, the unabashed SEC water carrier, really needs to get his facts straight. Hashtag alternative facts. So the dad actually is a coach. And it would seem that the dad is qualified. He coached in the NFL. His relationship with Harbaugh goes back to the NFL. So was Harbaugh doing this to give himself a little bit of an edge? Absolutely. Of course he does. They all do. But to act like the dad is like, my dad, who worked for the phone company and is like, hey, you want to go coach in Michigan? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a little off base here. But regardless, I love this stuff, and college football needs more of it. I love it.
I enjoy that. I know that it's been written like, Feinbaum carries the water for the SEC, so that's why he's anti-Jim Harbaugh. I don't think it's just that. I just think that he thinks that Jim Harbaugh is some kind of media darling and fan, and a darling with the fans, and that way he thinks that he gets away with a lot of stuff, and Feinbaum doesn't like that. He thinks that he was able to get that recruit by putting that coach on his staff. I understand that. You and I have seen this, by the way, especially in college basketball, have we not? Yes. Where there's a star player, then all of a sudden the father is part of the coaching staff, even though that father might be a coach himself on a high school level or a college level. But I understand Feinbaum's point. But it's just kind of funny because I just think that Feinbaum's just irritated with Harbaugh overall. You remember the story we just did, what, it was a year ago, 2 years ago, with him coming down and across the Mason-Dixon line, setting up satellite caps. My God, you can't
cross that Mason-Dixon line.
Crossing that Mason-Dixon line, setting up your football camps. Go back up there with the rest of the Yankees up in Ann Arbor. By God, what do you think you're doing, Harbaugh? So that was a major issue, and so I think that Feinbaum, even back then, still not happy about Jim Harbaugh crossing the Mason-Dixon line and now bring this coach in. He's going to stand Harbaugh's case, that's for sure.
I know, and it is very entertaining, and Paul had a great sense of humor. They changed the graphic to the Pete Feinbaum show today on his show. And that's wonderful. But, I mean, look, I think Harbaugh is just trying to get an edge like everybody else. Am I missing something? If they could, wouldn't other coaches do the same thing that he does? The difference is he works at a major university. He's got a huge budget. He's got a lot of leeway. He's got incredible job security. So, of course, he's going to push the envelope. And if I'm Michigan and I look where the program has come in the couple years that Harbaugh has been compared to where Hoke had it at,
yes,
I'm probably not going to complain too much. I'm not going to rein in Coach Harbaugh because clearly the methods he's using are working.
Oh, absolutely. And as again, what in that cut we just heard again, the NCAA rulebook, he's again disregarding the NCAA rulebook and doing things that in his mind is unethical. Yeah, I mean, you can classify it as such, but make sure that you're calling out every other coach for being unethical on some of the things that they do too. I know that this is an issue with Jim Harbaugh, but Jeff, I mean, come on now. It's college football. if you can take an inch, you will take a mile. As long as the old, dusty NCAA rule book doesn't know about it, coaches will definitely go the other way.
Yeah, and truthfully, though, look, of course, this hire helped him get this recruit. Of course it did. But the guy is a qualified coach. So it's not like he's just plucking some random dad out of obscurity, Hey, quit your job selling insurance. Come coach for me at Michigan and bring your boy with you. He's not doing that. That's not quite. But I love it. And I hope these two keep it up forever and ever because it's incredibly entertaining.
Absolutely.
Let's do If You Haven't Heard. That is coming up next. Dickerson and Hood, ready for Bomani. This is the right time. It's ESPN Radio.
The NBA's free agency deadline is next Thursday. Who needs to make a move to become a serious contender? Get the very latest Monday morning at 6 Eastern with Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2.
Right time. It's ESPN Radio. Dickerson and Hood in for Bomani. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All guests join us via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You can always contact us, our 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed, at TweetJHoods, where you get Jonathan. I'm at Dickerson ESPN. We're at ESPN Radio. And it's time now for If You Haven't Heard.
We know you can't be on top of all the news and information of the day. Now, If You Haven't Heard.
I want that voiceover guy to just follow me in life. That's what I want. I want that guy to just follow me. Excuse me. He needs the tomatoes. Please move to the side. On the right time. I want that guy.
We can arrange that.
Anywhere I walk.
I've got a couple of Mark Cuban stories, which I find entertaining. I'll go through them both quickly here. Mark Cuban has been very critical, as we know, of Donald Trump. Did not exactly enjoy President Trump's press conference yesterday, which was quite interesting. And he took to Twitter to express his extreme displeasure with some of the things that the president said. And he angered one season ticket holder who asked Cuban to give him a refund on season tickets. And Cuban responded to him, DM me, and I'll make that happen. So if you're upset about his political stance and you want to refund your season tickets, Mark Cuban will happily oblige. Also, Mark Cuban, Om Youngman-Suk from ESPN reported that Mark Cuban will be wearing number 46 tonight at the celebrity game in New Orleans because Donald Trump famously told him that you are not smart enough to be the president. Trump is president number 45, and Cuban is wearing number 46. So stay tuned with that one.
I already saw him on the SC6 with Jamel and Michael, and he's already in a full lather and a sweat, ready for his game, wearing that 46 jersey proudly in New Orleans.
So what haven't I heard? What do you got?
Me?
Yeah, you.
You know what you haven't heard? You haven't heard about Charles Oakley. Charles Oakley is out there again saying to SI, he says that in an interview, he thinks that Dolan's on the same level as the as our guy from the Los Angeles Clippers. Can you believe this?
Donald Sterling.
On Donald Sterling, he's on the same. He says he did not deny that there is connection between the two. He considers Dolan a racist. He was hesitating on saying that, but I thought that story was just unbelievable about how he compares him to Donald Sterling. He came very close to saying he's a racist, but not as close as Donald Sterling.
I have an NFL move that probably went under the radar for most people.
Yes.
Did you know that the Dolphins released Mario Williams?
No, I did not know that.
Mario Williams, look, if you look at the numbers, he's had a pretty good career. He has 97.5 sacks. He had some big years with sacks in Buffalo and in Houston. Did not play well for the Dolphins last year. He was due to make some money. None of it guaranteed, so they released him. But isn't it strange that such a former big name was let go and there was so little attention given to it? Is that kind of how far he's fallen?
That is surprising, actually. That is surprising. So does that mean that he has like one more act in him and he's going to be done? I think he's got more to. I thought he has more to give. Does he not?
Well, he's been in the league since 2006. I mean, he's been in the league for a long time. So he's had a very long career. He's made a lot of money. I mean, maybe he wants to keep playing. I don't know anything about that, but I just found it strange that on a day where he's released, it's basically just like a wire story. It's like there's nothing more to it.
Jason Stark from ESPN.com writes this story. During his 8 seasons with the Pittsburgh Pirates, Andrew McCutchen thought he would be the one to decide whether or not he's going to play center field or right field. He didn't have a vote. He was informed last month that he's going to play right field. And McCutchen said it wasn't an ask. He just said, you're going to move to right field. Now, here is a guy that has a 12-year professional career. He should be asked whether or not he's going to be a corner outfielder or not. And McCutchen was just told, no, you're going to play right field this year. And he was not happy about it as he talked to the press in Pittsburgh about it. So McCutchen is going to move to right field, and he's not happy that at least he wasn't considered.
Sounds like a Soriano deal from Chicago. Remember that?
Yeah.
They were moving him around, and he didn't know what was going on. Couldn't make heads or tails of it. That's interesting. Happy birthday to Michael Jordan and Jim Brown.
Wow.
It's a powerhouse birthday day today.
Now think about it. Jim Brown and Michael Jordan born on the same day. What's the equivalent of that? Tiger Woods and
LeBron. Don't they share a birthday?
Yes. So what's the better day? Jordan and Brown? The others?
I will go Jordan and Brown. But it's
pretty strong.
It's close. I mean, that's a close one.
Have you heard about Governor Chris Christie? Governor Chris Christie, as a governor, it makes a fine talk show host, apparently. So he was on and saying that the Philadelphia Phillies fans stink. He says that they're an awful team with an angry, bitter fan base. He also says it's not safe to go to a Phillies home stadium, Citizens Bank Ballpark, if you want to root for the opposing team. So a lot of outspoken criticism against Phillies fans and the organization from Chris Christie.
Oh, I mean, that's like yesterday's news. Yes, if you go to Philadelphia, if you go to one of their venues and you're wearing the other team's jersey, you might be in for a rough go. So what? I mean, that's how it is.
But he's the governor. He wants to be treated well.
New Jersey. All right, we got to get out of here. Jalen and Jacoby are coming up next. For Jonathan Hood, I'm Jeff Dickerson. Hope you enjoyed the show. It's The Right Time with Bomani. We're back on Sunday right here on ESPN Radio.
Barry Jenkins is nominated for not only Best Director, but also Best Adapted Screenplay.
It's surreal, man. You know, I've had a very privileged experience with this film.
The big screen's biggest night, the Oscars, and Cinephile will be there. Get all the details at Cinephile, the Adnan Virk movie podcast. Available now on the ESPN app and iTunes.
Garth Davis, the director of Line.
The story was just so powerful, people connected with it.
Viggo Mortensen.
It's one of those movies that when it finishes, you go, now what's going to happen?
The Oscars are coming, and Cinephile will be there. Get all the details at Cinephile, the Adnan Virk movie podcast. Available now on the ESPN app and iTunes. The NBA All-Star Game this Sunday.
Here's Curry behind the back, half-court heave on its way, and he hits it!
Coverage begins Sunday at 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.